This video is going to kick off my series on nonfiction. Specifically, I want to start with the 3 ways to tell a single person's story. Those are memoir, biography, and autobiography. The key thing about these 3 types of storytelling is they are nonfiction. That means that everything you are saying needs to be true to the best of your ability. So when you are talking about other people, you can't say what they were thinking and feeling unless you know what they were thinking and feeling because you either interviewed them or you're reading their journals and letters and that sort of a thing. This means that the point of view as far as people other than you, the author, go is a little bit more distant than in types of fiction. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping writers like you transform your writing so it lingers with readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. I want to start by talking about biography. This is when the author is not the subject. If you're telling someone else's nonfiction story, you're writing a biography. When I refer to a biography for the duration of this video, I'm not talking about that short About Me section that you find on websites, in speaker pamphlets, or in books. I'm only talking about a true story written by someone other than that person. A biography requires the most research out of these 3 ways of telling a nonfiction story. You, as the author, are expected to know everything about this person that you are writing a book about. You are also expected to vet your sources. Your readers are relying on you to wade through all of the myths and legends and gossips surrounding the person that you have chosen as your subject to get to what really happened and who they really were. It's your job to know the difference between what is just a fable and what actually happened. A biography usually uses distant third-person point of view. This is because, again, the author is not that person, so they don't know what that person was thinking and feeling and what was going on inside their head during their entire life. They might know snippets, they can get certain things from journals and letters, but those will only be moments in that person's life. In fiction, you can get really close and inside a character's head at any given time because they're not real. This distant third person creates a bit of distance between the reader and the subject of the biography, so be aware of that if that's what you're writing, and do your best to pull the reader in other ways and keep them interested and invested. In general, readers aren't often interested in biographies. What they are interested in are specific people and events from history. So biographies do better if they're about someone famous to some degree, because you're going to have more people already interested in that person. Examples of biographies include Naked at the Feast, a biography of Josephine Baker by Lynn Haney, Infamous Lady, the true story of Countess Elizabeth Bathory by Kimberly L. Craft, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skaloot, and John Adams by David McCullough. When you look at these book titles and their authors, notice that the person who the book is about is not the same person as who wrote it. Sometimes you will come across a book that says Memoir of so-and-so or so-and-so's autobiography, but when you look at the author, that person didn't write that book. Even though it has memoir or autobiography in the title, it's still a biography. When you are titling your own biography, I strongly recommend you do not do that. Readers don't like to be lied to. And when you're claiming something's a memoir and it's not, you're lying to them, and that's going to lead to some not great reviews. Next, I'd like to cover memoir, where authors share a chapter of their life. In a memoir, a person is recounting a portion of their life. They're not doing their whole life. Often, a memoirist is focusing on a specific event or chapter or theme in their life. Memoirs should almost always be first person because the author is telling their own personal story. When you don't write them in first person, readers start to become suspicious. They're wondering why you're not owning your own story. What are you hiding from them? First person also allows your authorial voice to shine through. What that means is readers feel like you're sitting in that room telling your story directly to them. Instead of there being this distance between you and them, they feel like they're having a conversation with you. It's more personal and they get to know you better, and that's what readers of memoir love. In Alchemy of the Afterlife, Linda Kenneman accomplishes this in the first page. She says, "One eye fluttered, opening only enough to allow a view of my own eyelashes. Slowly, like doors rusted on their hinges, I opened both eyes, ready to slam them shut if anything or anyone was looking back. This peekaboo technique has always served me well when watching horror movies. I've just never needed it first thing in the morning in my own bedroom." Here, Kenneman is owning her own experience. She's using the I pronoun. She's telling readers what she was thinking and feeling. She's inviting them into her experience. If you're writing a memoir, you should strive for this closeness that Kenneman accomplishes on her first page. In a memoir, you, the author, are the protagonist. You are the main character. So your experience should really come through. So should your personality. Linda Kenneman is from the South, and you can almost hear her Southern twang in her euphemisms and word choices. Unless you're writing a biography about someone who's really famous, by far memoir is the most popular of these nonfiction forms. And that's because it cuts out all the boring parts. People don't often care where you were born, who your parents were, what your parents did for a living, where you went to high school. What they care about is that portion of your life that defined you, or that portion of your life that they can relate to. A memoir focuses on not just the person and their story, but a theme or a message or an emotion or a moment in that person's life. That's where the story really lies. In Born to Run, A Hidden Tribe, Super Athletes, and the Greatest Race the World Has Never Seen, Christopher McDougall focuses on what first inspired him to research and look into long distance running, all the way to his participation in an ultramarathon. He doesn't talk about what happened after that ultramarathon or what happened before he first got interested in long distance running, because that's not what his memoir is about. So if you're writing a memoir, be aware of that. Be aware of what is related to the message that you're trying to get across and what's just extra information that's interesting to you because you lived it, but not to other people. This dual nature of memoirs should be reflected in the back cover copy. If you're writing a memoir, you want to give a little bit of your background on that back cover, and you also want to at least hint at what that theme is if you don't outright state it. Examples of memoirs include Alchemy of the Afterlife by Linda Kenneman, Born to Run, A Hidden Tribe, Super Athletes, and the Greatest Race the World Has Never Seen by Christopher McDougall, and The Double Helix, a personal account of the discovery of the structure of DNA by James D. Watson. Let's move on to autobiographies, where authors cover their whole life. An autobiography kind of merges biographies and memoirs together. It covers a person's whole life from birth up until the point when they finish writing that autobiography. So unless someone dies immediately after finishing it, it doesn't cover their entire life. Because you are telling your own personal story in an autobiography, you're expected to use first person just like a memoir does. However, you're not also expected to focus on a specific theme or event. It's understood that the real focus is just you. The first part of Stephen King's book on writing a memoir of the craft is not actually a memoir, it's an autobiography. Because King is covering everything from his childhood up until the moment when he wrote this book and was a successful author. If it was just a memoir, it would only focus on specific events that contributed to his writing and not all of this extra information that we get in his book. It's still interesting, it's just not a true memoir. For example, his passages about his childhood begin like, Our stay in West Deporte was neither long nor successful. We were evicted from our third-floor apartment when a neighbor spotted my 6-year-old brother crawling around on the roof and called the police. Memories like this are interesting and exciting, and I understand why King included them, to keep his readers invested. But they don't have anything to do with him becoming a writer. Other examples of autobiographies include Night by Ellie Wiesel, and Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. I'd also like to share my thoughts as an editor on biographies, autobiographies, and memoirs. Whether you're traditionally publishing or going the independent route, I highly suggest you take a hard, critical look at your life and really ask yourself, would I be interested in reading my entire life's story if I hadn't lived it? Is my story really my whole life, or is the story that I'm trying to tell only a portion of it? Autobiographies can quickly become an ego fest, where it's all about you, and you're not really giving your readers anything. When you transition from an autobiography to a memoir, your focus shifts a little bit, and you're not thinking so much about yourself, but what am I trying to tell others? So I would highly encourage you to consider memoir over autobiography. It's more interesting and it's really popular right now. They also read like fiction. They have conflict, they have characters and plot and story and tension and mystery, and they're written with the techniques that fiction writers use. So it pulls readers in, it captures their interest, it lingers with them afterwards. Consider using these same fiction techniques in your nonfiction story to really make it pop and stick with your readers. Regardless of whether or not you're writing a memoir, an autobiography, or a biography, you need to be aware of which of those you're writing. Each of them have their pros and cons. Also, you need to know where to put your book on a bookshelf. You need to know how to catalog it. Readers need a way to find your book. Whether you're writing a biography, a memoir, or an autobiography is up to you at the end of the day. What differences between biographies, autobiographies, and memoirs have you noticed? Share them in the comments below. For more videos covering the differences between different types of nonfiction writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping writers like you transform your writing so it impacts your readers. Because writing that impacts gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkwriting.com. There you will also find a chart comparing the different points of view. And now it's your turn. Tease out the wacky, thrilling, and wondrous moments from your nonfiction story to ignite your ink.